This is the video for the second part of the Module 2 test. I put the original screen up in case you're only coming to this part. Just a reminder, my YouTube channel is available, Graham Bagshaw. If you search for that on YouTube, you'll be able to find me. You'll be able to find the visuals for Module 2. And we're going to look at graphing equations on this one. So this is Lesson 2.2 and Lesson 2.3. Although you get to practice these in some of the later warm-ups as well. And if you need the Desmos calculator, the link is down there for that. Now, I put some notes in for this one as well. Just like the first one, I want to remind people about the Hoy and the Vux. So when we have an equation that's just y equals a number, as in there's only one letter here, I'm picking this word here because it's got the y in it. So I know I'm going to be drawing a horizontal line, basically going through the y-axis at whatever this number is. So if it says y equals 3, I'm going to start at 3 on the y-axis, and I'm just going to draw a horizontal line. And if we have x equals a number, once again, just a single letter, then I'm using the word with the x, which is Vux. So I would draw a vertical line, but this time going through the x-axis or whatever this number is. So x equals 3, you go to the x-intercept of 3, and then draw a vertical line straight through it. So this is the only one where we really plot x-intercepts. Everything else is y-intercepts. Our slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. The number with the x tells us the slope, and the number without the x is the y-intercept. So if the slope is a single number, remember to write it as a fraction by putting it over 1, and then you can count using rise over run when you're plotting this. And you'd normally start with the y-intercept first as you're doing this. Standard form is when you have x and y on the same side, so normally it's something like 3x plus 4y equals 12. You can solve for y, and then you can graph a slope-intercept form if you're asked to do that. And we also use Desmos as well when we were doing this section too, to make things a little easier. And you should as well. You're allowed to use that technology on the SOL, so you should make the most of it for that question. So, first of all, graph the equation negative 1/3 x plus 2. Now, unfortunately, I can't show you the Desmos screen because it doesn't work as well on mine, so mine's just a picture. So if I'm plotting this, I'm going to start with that number that doesn't have the x next to it, the positive 2. So I would go to positive 2 on the y-axis, and that would be my first point. You'll actually just click on a dot and it will draw it for you. The slope, the number with the x, is negative 1/3. The negative only applies to the top number, not both numbers. So this is like negative 1 over 3. If you do it to both numbers, then that's going to really mess this question up. So negative 1/3 means that from this point here, we go down 1, and then we go right 3. So it's possible, if you thought this was negative 3, it's very possible you might actually have gone this way and end up with totally the wrong answer. Notice by putting the dot here, you can see that the line is going downwards, which is indeed negative slope. And it says do at least 2 points, so we have 2 points there. If we had a bit more room here, I could go down 1 and across 3 more squares. And just checking, I end up with that type of straight line. X equals 3, single letter. So I know this is going to be one where I'm thinking of Hoy and Vux. So VUX, because that has the x in. So vertical line, go to 3 on the x-axis. Oops, I lost one of my dots there. Oh, I think these are hidden at the back, so I've got to bring it to the front. There we go. Whoops. And then from here, I can just go ahead and I can draw an avoid to vertical line, and that will be my answer for that question. Also remember, you're going to have multiple choice, so you'll actually have a list of options, so you can actually just pick the one that matches your picture as close as possible. This one's in standard form, so this one's going to be a little bit more complicated to do. I'm going to move my dots to the front first, since I forgot to do that. There we go. Use the graph, be sure to plot at least 2 points. So Desmos is going to be useful for this one, with it being an x and y form, x and y on the same side. So after you graph it, try and focus on the x and y intercepts, because that's probably going to help you to do this. So I can see it goes through negative 1 on the y-axis and negative 2 on the x-axis. So those would be my 2 points that I would plot. Negative 1 and negative 2. And then you could always draw a line through it if necessary. If I wanted to continue the pattern, I can see it goes down 1 and across 2. I could add in an extra point if I wanted to, but you certainly don't need to. Y equals 8. So this only has a single letter. So I'm already thinking about my Hoy and my Vux. So for this one here, I'm going to start from 8 on the y-axis. And the H in Hoy is horizontal. So I just need another point that would make this horizontal. And that just means straight across. I think that would work fine. If you want to put one more point, you could certainly do that as well. Transformations questions. So complete the statements to compare the graphs of g of x to the graph of f of x. So f of x you can see here on the picture is this graph here. And then 2/3 x minus 2. And then I'm actually going to plot this one. So the number without the x is where I start from on the y-axis. So there, 2. And a slope of 2/3 means I go up 2 and across 3. And if I can do it again, I should do it again. Up 2, across 3. Up 2, across 3. And then I can join this up with a straight line. And then I can start to look at what actually happens here. So the graph of g of x, that's this graph here, I've got to compare it to the graph of f of x, which is my first line. So if we start from the y-axis, that's probably the easiest place to do. What we notice is that the second graph that we drew is actually moved down from the first graph. So I would want to select that option there. And as we're looking at the slopes, it asks, is the graph of g of x steeper or less steep than the original one? I think we can see pretty clearly here the first line is the steepest one. So in other words, this line here is less steep. And you just got to make sure that you pay attention on which one are you talking about, the first line or the second line, or which one you're talking in relation to, because obviously that would make a big difference. Normally on SOL types of questions, you'd have to get both parts of this right to get the correct answer. So if you only got 1 out of 2, technically you'd score 0 for that question. So just make sure you're checking carefully. And obviously the drawing of that second line there is going to be really important as you do that. Now, I added in a couple of extra questions as well on plotting because I thought there was a couple of special cases that might be worth reviewing as well. Particularly if we don't have any number at the end here as we're graphing this. Notice I have the y and the x here, so it's in slope-intercept form with its starting y equals. If I have nothing on the end at all, then that means that I'm actually going to start from nothing, or essentially I'm going to start from 0. So my first dot would be at 0 on the y-axis, the origin. And then a slope of 4, with it just being a single number, remember that that means we're going to put it over 1. So I would go up 4, rise of 4, and then do a run of 1, and that would give me my slope of 4. So a bit of a special case with no number at the end, remembering to start from 0, and with a single number for a slope rather than a fraction, remembering if that happens, we're just going to move across 1 square. And one final special case starts with y equals again. So the number without the x is -3. Oops, forgot to move these dots to the front again. So the number without the x, like I said, is the y-intercept. So -3, so start at -3. Make sure you're looking at the sign as well. Very easy just to look at the number 3 and plot it up here. But the subtract 3 means we're going to start at -3. Now for this one, there's no number in front of the x at all. So we've got to remember two things. One, when there's no number, it means it's 1, so 1x. And also, if it's a single number, we're going to put it over 1 as well. So 1 over 1 means I rise 1, run 1. If I was to do it again, rise 1, run 1, and then I can draw that line in there as well, just to check. That concludes it for this video. Quite a few different rules in here, so just make sure you're aware of all the different things and you're aware of how to use the technology for those questions as well.